Justin, my man.
Hello, sir.
I am happy to have you on. You are the first episode of the podcast in the new studio that's just so nice behind
you.
you.
It looks great, dude. I think I told you this off camera, but it looks great. I like the shoes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the shoes are right now going to be what's behind me. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to put behind me. I might do hats. I might do some paintings. We'll play around with it, but the
make it more your brand.
Up, yeah. Maybe a little LYFE poster. We'll see what goes on. But dude, I'm pumped. I'm excited to have you on, not only for that, but also the first episode of the new year and the first episode back from my break. So it's like everything, you're getting the first of everything right now.
This is the first podcast I've ever been on, so that's not mine.
Okay. I even look at that. Yeah. Podcast the first over here. I'm excited, dude. Dude, it was. I'm so glad we were able to work it out too. I mean, I've had issues before with the podcast, but we had so much technical issues on it had to be my end because of just moving here and getting this all set up, and it was just, oh my god. I remember like wanting to, I'm not good with computers to say the least, and I was like ready to just break my laptop. I was like I was trying so hard to like contain it, like to not show you that, but I was in my head, I was like, this thing needs to fucking work. Like, I was so mad.
Talking about breaking electronics, I had an old roommate who they had a phone, or they lived downstairs, same house I live in now, but they don't live here anymore. But while they lived here, I don't know what happened, but somehow there's an imprint of a phone on the wall. So I don't know if they threw the phone at the wall or like smacked it in the wall or what, but like, man, like I've had intrusive thoughts that I would break electronics, but I never actually have, and I don't know what happened with that. So
that's intense. Most I've done was like throw my phone at a pillow. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
but it's a pillow. It's soft.
You get like one little like.
Yeah.
But one time I remember I slung it. I was thinking, and it hit and it flew. Didn't land this way. It landed this way, and it hit and like rolled up and went all the way up the wall and fell.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like,
how the heck that happened?
It was the last time. I was like, I can't do that again. I'm gonna break a phone.
That's funny.
Anyways, although this phone's old enough where I'm ready to throw it anyways. But anyways, man. But yeah, super pumped to have you on. Let's dive into some things here, okay?
Yes.
Your podcast, Underground Society.
Yep.
How did you start that, man? What was the idea behind it? Like, was there a moment that you were like?
Yes. There's a very good story actually behind that.
We're all about stories. Let's hear it.
So I've grown up, and originally I started in the fitness industry. I was a competitive bodybuilder. I used to compete in men's physique, so did that for a couple of years, and that really put me on the trajectory of like really believing in myself that I could really do anything. And during that time, I started watching a lot of like the famous fitness influencers, Christian Guzman, Max Tuning. I still watch a lot of those guys. I still follow their journeys just because I respect who they are as content creators, and I love the businesses they created and stuff. So got a lot of inspiration from there. Funny enough, when I was competing in bodybuilding, I actually was in the early phases. I never really took it too far, but I did shoot a couple videos, and I think they're off the internet now. But I did try and get into like vlogging and stuff. At the time, with school and my age at the time, I was 17, so I was like, I just didn't have it all together yet. But when the podcast started out, I had this thought. I was going to events, and I knew that long term, which is still my goal, I want to become a talent manager for EDM artists. Career-wise, but I knew that I wanted to do that. I've known that for the last 5-6 years. But what I realized is, at least at the time, I was like, there's no like podcast, at least that I knew about at the time, in the EDM space, or like no radio stations. I was like, why is there no radio station for EDM music? There's rap stations, there's country stations, there's rock stations. Why is there not an EDM, radio station? So during that time too, I was getting into a lot of like self-growth and working on myself. And I actually got with a life coach who has been in the EDM industry. He used to manage artists. He actually pretty sure he was Sullivan King's very first manager. Really good friends with Slander. He used to work at Icon Collective. But I saw him on another podcast. I reached out to him, and we started working together. And I kind of told him like some of my goals and where I wanted to go in life. And I told him the idea of why I noticed that there's not an EDM radio station. Insomniac has their radio station or whatever, but that's all XM. I was like, just like a, FM radio station that would like locally broadcast. Why does that not exist? And he was like, well, that's a lot of money to start a radio station, but what if you started a podcast? So he kind of planted that seed. Yeah. And then he challenged me, and he obviously, because I'm paying him to be my life coach, and he was like, how about you have your first episode up in a month? And I was like, went from idea to first episode in a month, and that month was absolutely insane. But yeah, ever since then, I set it up, and I just took it from there, and I've been consistent for going on 3 years now. So
I needed that when I started. I still need some of that, actually. Yeah. That is fantastic to get started that quick. So was there, was there like so you thought about it, you wanted to do it, but was there like a moment, like I can think of times where like I'm somewhere and that like idea struck me and I'm like, I'm doing it. Like, was there a moment, like a thing a place you were that you can remember when it happened?
Yeah, well, yes, I was at when I started the podcast, I didn't have this studio that's behind me. I was actually, because it was during COVID, I was living at my parents', just because this was my college house and there was people living here and I got stuck. I was visiting my parents and then COVID happened and I got stuck there. So I was living there for a year, and yeah, it was literally just a moment of me being on FaceTime with my life coach and with Nick. Yeah. Shout out Nick, and just that moment of being on FaceTime, and he was like, "Why don't we take this leap of faith?" And I was like, "Well, why not? I think I've watched other people do it. I have, I look up to other content creators, and I've always wanted to get myself into that. So, yeah, it was really just that moment of like, he was like, "You have a month," and I was like, "All right, yeah, all right, I guess we're doing this."
Yeah, it's so useful to have someone that is also pushing you. We kind of spoke with this on your episode and like whatnot, but like the people around you in the group and the community you have within this to like help you and move you forward is actually very crucial. And yeah, just having that extra push. Like I tell you, it was hard for me to just get started. If someone was like, "You're doing this right now," like, I need someone to be like, "Get your ass moving, boy." Mm-hmm. Like, it is a big change.
Taking it back to me competing in bodybuilding, I obviously had a coach during that as well, but it's a lot of, you have to stay in the gym. You have to go 6-7 days a week to the gym. You don't have a choice. If you want to compete, you have to do it. So learning the self-discipline as early as I started training for bodybuilding when I was 16. So, and I did that for 3-4 years. I became a coach myself. I was very active in that space before I got into the EDM stuff. And for a while there, I was doing both. But really, I think, and I still think about this a lot, I think I credit a lot of my discipline and a lot of my, like, never give up and a lot of my consistency to what I learned in bodybuilding.
I bet. I mean, I'm envious of you in that category. Yeah. I'm envious of you in that. So you just kind of hit on my next topic was I want to know, how did you get into the EDM scene? Because how did you make this? It's a very different lifestyle and change from bodybuilding and competitions and working out. Not that you still don't work out, but like boom to I'm going to festivals. I'm into this new music, this underground music that is it's just starting to pop off.
I grew up going to concerts with my mom. My mom's a huge concert goer. I grew up listening to classic rock, country. I still love all the genres. I'm not just like, personally, what I listen to now, it's a lot of EDM because it's the world that I'm involved in. But I still enjoy, even I'm a Christian as well, and Christian rock. Like, I listen to a plethora of genres, and I've grown up going. I went to my first concert when I was like, I think I was like 3 years old or something like that, and I grew up going to concerts. And one day, one of my really good friends who I met in 7th grade, once we obviously got of age and stuff. We were at the gym one day, and he was like, "What? He told me he went to a rave, and I was like, "You of all people," because he like sang in our worship band, and he was a very like Christian. And I was like, "You of all people went to a rave? Like what?" And he was like, "Yeah, there's one tonight. You should come." And I was like, all right, give me like an hour to think about it, but maybe. And then I talked to someone else. We were at the gym actually, and I talked to one of my other friends who I was there lifting with, and I was like, should I do this? And he was like, dude, I've been to raves before. They're hella fun. You should definitely go. And I was like, all right, 2 people are telling me to go. And I really, he was my best friend at the time, and my best friend's telling me to come with him. So I was like, you know what do I have to lose? I went and I saw other people, and it was after I graduated, so it had been some time since I saw a lot of the people that I knew in high school and stuff, and saw a bunch of people that I knew in high school that I had classes with and stuff at this rave, and I was like, dude, like my people are here too, like, and that I know, and like this isn't all new to me, and fell in love with the music. Obviously I'm a huge music lover, and from that point forward, I went with, he introduced me to the group of friends that he went to his first raves with, and 2 weeks after that, he was like, hey, there's a festival in Tahoe called Bass Camp. And he was like, would you want to go with us? And like the whole group was like, we love Justin, like come with us please, like that'd be so much fun. And they saw how much I loved it. So 2 weeks later I went to my first festival, so it was like back to back almost, like immediately
right away.
Yeah. And then from there it was just I got into kind of just going to events, and then past that I got the local production company that was there. I'm from Sacramento, so one of the local companies there started going to a lot of their events, and I saw that they had a promotion team available. So like, you know, being on social media, and I had already built up somewhat of a following from the bodybuilding days, and I knew there was a lot of crossover there. I was like, oh, maybe I can become a promoter. So I did promoting for a couple of years, and then after that, I wanted to get more involved, and that's kind of where I started thinking, like, career-wise, maybe I could get involved with the EDM space career-wise and kind of take that link. So at the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was involved in bodybuilding, but I didn't see a long-term future in that. It was just kind of what I was doing at the time. I loved it for what it was, but and so I started working production teams, and then past that, it was nice, you know, brain starts going, and then back to what we were talking about earlier of like, why isn't there no radio station for EDM? Like, what? Right. That doesn't make any sense. Like, I grew up listening to music. There's all these other radio stations for all this other different music that I like, and this new love for EDM, there's no radio station for that. So that's kind of where the tides kind of took a turn and started really chasing like a business and like making money here. Yeah.
It is interesting, the EDM scene as a whole, and how it has, you know, it started as this underground scene, and then it's gotten some festivals, but even those weren't like specifically known, or they weren't very big. And then I would say, maybe, I don't know when, but I feel like it has just exploded.
Oh, yeah. EDM's taking over the world. I say that all the time, jokingly. But, yeah, EDM's taking over the world.
For real, it's like it's exploded. Especially this past year, it feels like 2022 feels like it really just started to take off.
Yeah, after COVID, yeah, definitely. So, like, even the festivals are, I think our festivals have the most attendees. Even like, it's bigger than Rolling Loud. It's bigger than like any, you know.
Oh, 100%.
We have like our community is the strongest, I think, out of every other genre too.
Now, speaking of the community, is this growth something that you think is good or bad? Mix of both?
I think it's great. I would love to see EDM. I understand people's worry for, you know, wanting to keep it underground because it has been for so many years. But for me personally, I would love EDM to get to the point of like it is how rap grew from underground to what it is now. I would love to see EDM do the same thing. I think it's awesome. Keep growing. Please keep growing. Make us more money.
I mean, I think 100%. I think, you know, especially for like us and some other creators in this space, it's like we're kind of like those first movers, those first kind of voices, and someone goes to their first festival, and then the algorithm picks up on that, and now your TikTok's in front of them talking to an artist, and mine's talking about a skit or whatever. It's definitely like just blown up, and it continues to grow. And there's like you said, there's definitely some concerns. There's growing pains with anything that's gonna you know, become mainstream essentially, but yeah, I'm with you there. It's weird. It's definitely, you don't like some of the bad things. You know, I'm starting to have some not so fun experiences in the crowd, but like overall, it's like it's exciting to see, you know, a song being played at a store. Like that to me, the past year has blown my mind when I'm like, I walk
here in
the
Millennium.
store. Yeah, dude, that's exactly what I was gonna say. That's exactly what I was gonna say too. That's
shout out to the Millennium. I don't know if he'll ever hear this, but yeah, good on him because he really. He was one of the main, I think, pioneers of revolutionizing, like, combining the pop with the melodic bass, with like just his writing style makes it more listener friendly to people who aren't already in the scene.
100%, especially this new stuff he's putting out with his little more guitar, a little more something. It's more vocals to it. Like, it's perfect that way, and I actually almost like it more. Now, this is not a question I had, but like, what do you think of like Marshmello? Because he gets a lot of heat, and he got a lot of heat before, and that could be also because he was such an early mover in connecting and bridging the gap of EDM and
pop.
rap and pop
yeah.
and yeah. What are your thoughts on him?
Originally, I really liked his first few albums. Just sound-wise, I really liked Marshmello early on, and now I don't know if you paid attention to his. I think it was his last album. I don't even remember when it dropped, but it was basically like every song he had on it was collabs with people, and Subtronics did his collab with Marshmello's air quotes. That I think that whole album, I lost a lot of respect for him in the album because I think a lot of those songs weren't even touched by him, and it was just him collabing with the other artists so that he could help push the Marshmello brand forward. So like his song with Subtronics, it sounds like a Subtronics song. It doesn't even sound like Marshmello. Like, how would that even make sense for Marshmello? Like other than the fact of like the vocals, or like I went to a party and took off his helmet and he was a Cyclops or whatever, right? That part in that song, like
in the video.
Yeah, but I think that was more of a Subtronics song than a Marshmello song, and I think it's great that he's people like that. I think it's awesome that they're able to reach new heights in this industry, and I think those are the people that really push this forward. But as far as a producer, I lost a lot of respect for him with the album.
Yeah, I didn't touch too much on that album, but I will say his songs with like the pop and rap artists, I feel like he got a lot of unnecessary heat.
I agree with that. Yes, yeah,
a lot. Because in my head, I was like, well, he's the first to actually bridge this to other genres, and it's in showing other people about EDM, and that's part of the reason why I think people hate it, because they're like, no, we want this to be only us.
Yeah.
And I just like,
no newcomers, like what?
just as it is right now, really. Except it's way more apparent now.
Yeah.
I think. Was there we kind of talked about your first festival, but is there like a festival? Was that first festival the one that got you hooked, or was there another one that was like stood out as like one of your favorites?
I think it just grew over time, to be honest. Like it just I was
slowly
hooked. Yeah. Like I knew that I wanted to continue going after my first one. Obviously, I was already used to going to concerts and stuff, but I think it just slowly over time. But I gotta say, my favorite festival, and I've been I think this will be year 4 once the tickets go on sale in a few weeks, but Lost Lands is my home.
I was like, is he going where I think he's going?
Yeah, I waited almost 15 years to go to EDC. I wanted to go to EDC before I even went to my first rave, just because it looked fun, and I saw the ads for it and stuff when I was like 10, 11 years old, and I was like, that looks lit. That's like on my bucket list. And now it's kind of funny because my career kind of went that direction, but I finally went to EDC last year, and nowhere close to Lost Lands, in my opinion. And I've been, now that I've been to both and waiting so long, it was maybe it just because it was overhyped in my head or something, but because I waited so long, I was like, oh, EDC is going to be this great thing. And honestly, I didn't think it was. There was a lot of cool aspects about it, but overall, as a festival experience, I think Lost Lands still has the crown.
That is a hot take, my friend. Yeah. Some people are not going to be a fan of that.
I'm okay with that.
No, I love it. I mean,
I'm the type of person that I love trance music. I love all different genres within the EDM umbrella, and I really appreciate Excision for bringing some of the house people, for bringing some of the other, drum and bass to the festival, and he has variety, even though it's named like the biggest bass festival. Bass. Yeah, and he does bring variety, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think it's something about Lost Lands too for me, man. It is my favorite.
Yep.
It's just something about
the vibes there, bro. Is unmatched.
And I've been saying that for a while now, and I think that is because it is an all bass festival.
Yeah.
And bass music, dubstep, rhythm, and other things fall under the bass music. Mm-hmm. But bass music is like this one. It's like the genre, the hidden genre. Not hidden, but like the genre, the rest of the genre is like keep away.
Yeah,
we don't want to associate. So like when a bass music festival happens, like the only people that are going
are bass music fans.
It's bass music fans.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare you're gonna have you meet someone that's like, I'm just here to be here.
To be here, yeah. That's what, and I think that's what a lot of, I don't know if you've been to Insomniac, like SoCal Insomniac events or not, but I think that's where they run into a lot of issues, because there's a lot of people that end up going that, and I think why theft is so high, why they have a lot of issues, is because a lot of people go, they're not true diehard EDM fans. They're just going. Yeah.
So I haven't been to any in SoCal, which is funny, but I've been to in Florida over here. EDC
you guys
Orlando.
have like Forbidden. You have Forbidden. You have which is still comparable to Lost Lands because it is a bass music festival.
Forbidden doesn't get it as much.
Yeah.
But EDC.
EDC. Yeah.
Big time. Because it's also right. Both of them now are in Orlando, and they're also right next to the college. So Forbidden Kingdom has gotten a little worse since they moved to Orlando with like regular people coming because it's like anyone could just go to that because it's in Orlando. But EDC is a big one because that's like even like me and my friends in college, we would go down there and just we're gonna go for the weekend and like and there was 30 other people that like friends I knew that weren't into raving. That
they're just
I'll
there.
see you there, and you're like, what are you doing? Like I'm happy to see you.
The follow-up question is, who are you most excited to see? Who's on the lineup?
I had one buddy, I'll never forget this. He never goes to him and whatnot, and I run into him at like the last set of the night, and he leans over to me, puts his arm around me, and he goes, I get why you come to these now.
Feeling good there, bud?
It was the funniest thing ever, though. He was like, funny. This is pretty fun. I'm like, yeah, okay. Just funny. But yeah, something about it's just sorry, to go back to that.
Yeah.
Everyone's there for that reason, and they love that music, and that is usually what makes
a lot of people travel, too. So it's a commitment for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've only met a handful of people that are actually from Ohio at Lost Lands.
Right, very few. Yeah. Did you fly in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm from Cali. That's across the country. That's like an all-day flight.
Know that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
You drove over there for so long?
Hell no, that's like a day and a half drive or something like that, like nonstop. Yeah.
We had two buddies the first year we went that beat us from Colorado.
Oh.
And they drove.
That's still a distance.
Through.
That's still like almost West Coast.
They drove straight through. They were like, it was miserable. I was
I
bet. It doesn't sound fun. And we did from Florida. It's like 16 or 8. It's ridiculous.
That's like so. Most of the people who are my friends in the community on the West Coast, that's how they are with Base Canyon. Most people drive to Base Canyon, just because of where the airport is and stuff. It just sometimes makes more sense to do the 12-hour, 13-hour drive.
It's funny you say that. Because not that I would drive from
Florida. Yeah, not from Florida.
Because it's literally, But I will say that festival is very hard for East Coast people to go to because of the location, which is beautiful. I would never want them to change it. But, for us, I've looked into it 2 years in a row now, and it's like just the stars didn't align to fly out, rent a car, then camp it, and then drive back. Like, it gets very pricey very quickly for East Coast people. So I've been sticking with Lost Lands.
How far is it? I think like the closest airport to the gorge is like 2 hours.
It's like 2 or 3. Yeah.
So it's like for us, it's like we might as well just drive because you're gonna have to drive, like rent a car, then drive, then like there's extra expenses there. So it's like just take your car. But yeah, for Florida people, that would be rough, man.
Yeah. It would be oh my god. Could you imagine going cross? That's like
No,
not even gonna try. No, thank you. So we're gonna switch over gears a little bit because you are a podcast host, and that is what is interesting me the most about having you on here. So I kind of want to know what is your process for preparing for a podcast? What do you kind of do? Do you I know a little bit about it.
Yeah.
From what you've sent to me and stuff from when I did yours, but I want to know a bit more than just that. Like, what do you do to get ready for them? I got follow-up questions with this too. So
I kind of to start to finish, take you through my process. Obviously, I got to reach out to the guest, get whatever work on bookings. That's a constant, ever evolving thing in itself. But then once you have the guest,
we're gonna dive into that. By the
way.
I have questions for that.
And then once the guest is booked and you have the date and everything, probably I try for every interview that I do a 3-page outline. I dig through their social medias. I dig through, if they've been interviewed before, if they've been in magazines, online magazines. They've been, anything and everything that I can find online. I do like 3 hours of prep work. It's very intensive, and it's just the way I prefer it because I get to learn about the person before I even talk with them. So it sets me up in a position to where I almost know how they're going to answer because I ask the questions that I kind of already have done the research about. And it helps me narrow in like what kind of questions or which questions are going to be beneficial to the listeners too. So I do my outline. After that, I obviously I do most of my recordings. I've only done a couple in person, but most of them are online, just because traveling and stuff. People are not always near me. With that though, and then once the recording's done, I use a program called Descript, which is basically you import the files and then it transcribes it for you, and then the transcriptions you can actually go through and edit like the words. You can edit basically edit the transcription where whatever words you delete or whatever, it'll actually delete it in the sequence of like the actual recordings. So very, very, now that I didn't do that in the beginning, that's been in the last year or so. Just completely sped up my process. After that, I use the same program to create all my reels. I use the same program to create my YouTube video. Everything is all in one on Descript. And then,
I did not know that.
Yeah, and then you just export it. Yeah. With that though, I also have someone who works alongside with me. He's my roommate and a really good friend of mine. He's a music producer, so he does all the audio engineering with mixes and masters and cancels out background noise, all that kind of stuff, all the high end stuff. He does all that. So once I get done with the content edit, then it goes to him to like basically put the shiny touches on it to prepare it to go out. And then we have every Friday we upload, and the YouTube videos come out on Monday. That following Monday, I don't do them at the same day, but we do weekly episodes, and that's pretty much the basis of my process.
So this is why Friday? I'm just so curious.
I saw a lot. I've
Not
changed
that it
it.
matters,
Yeah, it doesn't really at all. But Friday, it seemed like at the beginning, I'm pretty sure I had it on Friday. Then I moved it like earlier in the week, and I think Fridays. The reason why I did it is because it seemed, at least in our niche, there wasn't too much competition in a way. Which it's not really a competition, but a lot of people don't release episodes on Fridays, and it was going into the weekend, and a lot of people are like off work, or they can watch the YouTube videos or whatever. And it seemed like, at least with my analytics, my spikes throughout the week were on the weekend, so I just released it going into the weekend.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart. Yeah. I just not many people do Friday, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
I've never.
Doesn't really matter.
No, I never thought it did, or like never understood.
Because people are going to listen to podcasts when they have their own time throughout the week, so.
100%. I do that myself.
Yeah.
Podcast I listen to.
And sometimes it's on different days. Sometimes my schedules fluctuate. So.
I get it. 100%.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I've listened to some like the day before the next episode comes out, and then it's like back to back. If I'm busy, like it just sometimes it happens. So your process of getting guests, I'm super interested in, because you are similar we have similar styles of podcasts where we have a guest on and we discuss things. What is that process like? Because I know that is an area for me that has always been rather difficult to like consistently get good guests. I've been fortunate enough where I have friends that will come on in person, because mine's also a little bit different, where I'm not having to constantly get people in the industry or anything. So I've had like some regular friends that will come on regularly, and that's like an escape for me. But I'm curious about how your process of getting guests works.
It's definitely gotten easier over time to get better guests. Early on, it was a lot of the people that I already knew and had relationships within the industry, just because I was trying to get the podcast off the ground. But now that it's gotten to the point it is, and I'm getting people who have signed to labels, who play Lost Lands, who play EDC, who are touring artists, who are not headliners quite yet, which is where I want to get to, but people who I just interviewed someone who was on tour with Right 10, who was direct support on his tour, like people on that caliber. I think it's just over time building the relationships and fostering your relationships with not only artists but managers, agents, doing a lot of just being active and commenting on people's social media account when they post something. I've even gone as far as like turning on notifications for certain artists I want to get on, so that I make sure to comment or engage in their social medias and they see me, so that when I reach out, they already kind of have an idea who I am. If I don't know someone who they know, and a lot of it is also just the people who I've had on, if I reach out to their manager, I'll send them a link of people, or go ahead and take a listen back to here's our channel. Go ahead and take a listen back at some of our previous episodes, and the more people that you have on that maybe they know, or maybe the artist that you're trying to get on has a relationship with or friends with, they're like, oh, they had so and so on. Okay, this is probably a good show. So then they're more inclined to, oh yeah, go ahead. Let's set this up. So it's a lot of cold reach out, and it's a numbers game.
I've experienced that. So there's definitely a lot of reach out, hear nothing.
Yep.
Maybe hear something 2 months later.
And you got to get used to a lot of no's and a lot of nothing back.
Yes, that was a big thing. Yeah. So when you go and looking at guests, what do you have a method of or a schedule you like to stick to of mixing it up? Because I was going through your podcast, I was looking at them, I was listening to some of them. You've got a great mix of artists, people in the industry, influencers, all that stuff. How have you navigated that? Was there a specific method?
Honestly, it's pretty random. It's pretty random, yeah.
Okay.
But
I kind of thought that, but it's the case.
Yeah, it's pretty random. It's just I try my best to have a good variety. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I just had 3 bass music artists on. I got to switch it up. Let's have a house person on, or let's have a drum and bass artist on, or let's have an influencer on, or let's try and keep it, or let's have a manager on. I like getting people in the business side of things too on the podcast. So
I've always been fascinated with that myself. I had a couple of photographers on. I've gone that route previously, and I would do that again coming this year. But having those because I think I'm fascinated with photography. I have no skills in it.
Yeah, I've had Shutterclick if he hears this.
I haven't got to listen to that one yet, but I saw it. It looks cool. Yeah, he's someone who I haven't reached out to him, but there's been others in the scene I've had reached out to and either scheduling or something. But anyways, besides the point. I love that you have a variety, and that's kind of where I started my podcast, was just the variety of people having different sites. So I relate to that. I was just curious if you had a method or not.
I guess the purpose of the show is really to help people who want to be in the industry, no matter what facet of the industry they want to get into. So it would be a disservice to my audience and the people who I'm trying to reach if I didn't include things from all of the different facets, because maybe someone is listening to the show that they can hopefully to the people who want to be in the industry, anyone who I have on the show, they can learn something from. But for the people who, I want to be a photographer, but you have a lot of artists on, maybe it's not the show for you. But the fact that I have a photographer on, that episode would be like, okay, let's go listen to that one because I want to be a photographer. Let's see what another photographer in the scene is doing. Let's see his methods. Let's see some of his challenges that he's had to overcome, so that I know what to expect when I'm trying to build my career as a photographer. But that goes for all the different, if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a manager, that's really the reason why I have such a variety of people on the show.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great for the scene as a whole and everything. Yeah. I do love that. And like I said, going through and being able to see, there's an influencer, I can listen to this. The photographer, I could pick and choose, and as you say, and I'm they're also so much more than that, just that one person. You have an influencer on, and you learn that they're also a small business owner, and they work in a corporate setting. There's so much more behind that person that is on the camera.
Yeah.
And there's so much more of that person who's on stage. There's all those different things. Were there any guests that surprised you, either with their personality or the topics that they maybe brought up during the interview? I'm just curious.
Man, I don't know if surprise would be a right thing to say, but I guess one of the ones that, just because I like I said previously, I want to build a career as a manager, and that's what I want to do, career long term. So I think for me, the managers that I've had on was most beneficial just for me, just because that I actually get to ask them okay, I've been wondering about this for me specifically as my career continues. What do they have to say about it? I know they've gone through it. So it's the episodes that have been more personally related to what I'm trying to achieve with my career has been probably the most significant. But I don't know if anything. I don't know if I would say surprise necessarily.
Anyone specifically stand out?
Shout out Jason Euler. We still have a great relationship. I've had a few of his artists on. He's the talent, or no, he has his own roster of artists, but he's also the basically the Pasquale Rotella of Relentless Beats in Arizona. So he runs all of Relentless Beats festivals. He's the head of all of those things. What did you have him on your pod? I know he's been on a few other pods.
I have not.
No.
Would love to, but I have
not. Yeah. I know he's been on a few other podcasts, but yeah, and he's also, and one thing I really like too is when I get the opportunity to, and I think this is a reason why I said him as well, is I'm a Christian, and it's something that I want to somehow build into just who I am, and I want to showcase that to a certain degree. And he's also a Christian, so we had a really good talk about like how to navigate your Christianity within like the music industry, especially EDM industry, because there is a lot of darkness in the EDM industry, and how do you navigate that as a Christian? So not only was it beneficial for career-wise, but it was also beneficial for me, just like for my faith. So
right.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's fantastic. With the artist management side of things, what's something that you've learned? Like, 'cause I don't know much about that arena and all that. Does it fully encompass, managing their bookings, their tour dates,
it depends.
Social medias? It just kind of depends.
Yeah, it depends. So there's the day-to-day manager, which is what I think a lot of people think of when they think of managers, which is like managing their day-to-day activities, managing what appointments they have, managing they take full control over that. I actually just started Underground Society Management this year. I have my roommate, and then I have a few other smaller artists that I'm starting to work with going into starting this year. We've got him a show in Colorado in a couple weeks. We got him like 3 back-to-back shows coming up at the end of the month. One in Colorado, one's in LA, and then one is in Sacramento. But that's a new venture that I'm starting on. Those guys don't necessarily, because they're not at like a huge size yet, and they don't have label releases quite yet, or we're going to be working on that, but there's not as much work there. But there is, there's the tour manager, there's the booking manager. If they don't have an agency, there's someone, as a manager, you could take care of that for them. So it just depends on like what the artist needs, really. But there is different forms. There's a day-to-day, there's a tour manager. Those are like the 2 big ones, I think. But
gotcha. I did not know there was. That's what I thought was just day-to-day. That's what my head was. So that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how does it feel to take that leap and start that management firm?
I'm excited, man. I'm always, especially competing in bodybuilding, and then now running the podcast, and my journey of what I've accomplished so far just in my life, and I've whenever I set my mind to something, I've gotten to the point now that I've done it a few times, and I've proved to myself that I can like really handle any challenge. It's exciting for me when I embark on something that's like new and challenging, and like I'm like, okay, what can we learn here? How can I improve? And it's just like it's almost I gamify it almost, so it's fun.
Yes, I bet.
Yeah.
When you've taken this, was this a calculated risk? Have you felt like you've started to gather enough information to say, I can start this, or were you just like, I'm going? Was it like the same thing with the podcast of like, here's the date, boom, we're going?
Because I've been I've been around it long enough now, I do kind of see what needs to be done, and I got to the point to where artists that I don't even necessarily work with have reached out to me because they know I have knowledge to a certain degree, and like ask me like, oh, what do you think about this? What how do I even questions as small as like, how do I get my music on Spotify? It's like, okay, well, there's an answer for that. So it's like I started seeing people starting more and more to reach out to me as like someone who might know what a little bit more of what they're doing than they are as far as like the business back end stuff. So once I noticed that, then I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure help people along their journeys and stuff. I'm pretty sure that I'm in the position to where I can help someone on a significant level. So. Yeah,
that's exciting. I mean, I think it's great to. So, how recent was this that you started it?
Last 2 months. Yeah, it's new.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So I'm with you there. I just started my LLC and stuff too. Yeah. I'm freaking pumped about because I've had a plan of like, I want this to be a thing, yada yada, and
like you said on my show, you just got to do it, man.
You just gotta
do it.
And that brings me to, what are some of the ups and downs that you as a podcast host and creator have witnessed yourself?
Oh, man.
I want to divide this into two parts. Let's do the creator first, because podcast host is its own thing.
Yeah.
And it's its own animal, but I do want to hear that. Let's go about the creator side of things. Because I consider you a creator still.
Yeah. Thank you, but I think for me, I'm more of just a podcast host who wants to get into more of the business side of things. So I would say more of a podcast entrepreneur would be what I would title myself. I want to get more into the content creation side, but yeah, I think that would be, at least right now, that's where I'm at in my journey.
So what are some of the hurdles and ups and downs you've had with your podcast entrepreneurship?
Okay, so with the podcast, I think the biggest hurdle is communication with people. Communication is huge for me, and just a lot of people are really fucking terrible at it. Sorry if I can't cuss on this, but a lot of people are horrible at communication. So, yeah. And I think that, setting up, and I'm not even perfect. People make mistakes. I get that. But when you completely ghost someone, or, you think other people think that they're better than you so they can kind of walk all over you. I don't care what size I'm at. I've always, which I'm very grateful that I've had this outlook. Even though I might be smaller than whatever artist or whatever guests I have on, I'm earlier in my career than they are. I don't take shit from people. I really don't. Like if you, I've had people where, they've backed out or they didn't communicate the day of the podcast recording, and I'm left there without an episode, and then they come back 2-3 days later. Oh, I'm so really sorry, man. Like something, or not even like a good excuse, or they try and get back on the show, and I'm like, look, like, all I want, like, that's fine, and I'll work with you, but the only thing, and I'll communicate, the only thing that I really wanted from you is for you to be able to communicate, hey, something came up. Can we reschedule this? Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't even have the courtesy to do that, and I think that's been the most challenging part for me, is just, like, when things are left up in the air and you're not hearing back from people, that's really frustrating. So I think my biggest struggle as a whole has been, like, a lot of the scheduling stuff, and communicating with people, and the mediums, through email, through social media, through text, whatever it may be. Yeah,
maybe
communication with people has probably been the hardest.
It is definitely hard, as I've experienced on my own, and I do say I'm sorry for putting up with me. I know I was a little bit of a wreck there for
You're all good. No, you were communicative, though. That's all I want. Yeah, I understand shit happens. Life happens, man. But just tell people. Communicate with people.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
It also just comes down to, like, a respect thing for the other people and whatnot. Because, like, you got to think, it's like you would want to do that for them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to just, because it happens. And I've had people cancel on me and stuff like that. And same thing. I've had it where people are very communicative, and it's like, yo, don't worry. Like, almost like, hey, it's okay.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. Let's go. Like, and it's definitely. So in knowing that, have you, like, tweaked your scheduling and your posting of the podcast a bit, where, like, maybe you're a week or two? Okay. That's
so then that's something
have
that
some in the bank.
I learned the hard way on that one, but yes.
Me as well.
It's definitely a smart idea to have. I'm right now that we just recorded yours. I'm now, like, I'm done for the entire month of January recording wise. So now I just have to do the work to actually make them presentable to people. But I going into this year, that's one of my main goals that I'm focusing on, is getting, because if you're ahead schedule, it really doesn't matter if things fall through. It really doesn't matter. You have time to salvage, or you have time to get a new guest, or you have time, giving yourself plenty of leeway is something that I had to learn the hard way.
Yep, I can understand.
Yeah.
So 100%. It just sometimes, like, we were talking about that on your episode too. Sometimes you just gotta go through those those burdens and stuff to figure it out.
And there's been weeks where I've, due to the guest falling through, I couldn't put out an episode. And that, and the fact that my show is weekly, and I'm very hard on myself with being consistent about that. It's a big hit for me. And it probably doesn't matter too much to the audience or whatever if I miss a week, but I don't like doing that. So
it's a good thing, though, that you have that mentality yourself, because it is so vital. Like we've talked about again earlier and stuff. It's so vital to have that discipline, and that, like, you don't want the opposite of, like, you miss a week and you're like, all right, whatever. Like, you want to be like, I said I was going to do it, and I'm pissed now that I didn't do it. Like that. It's so much better to have that and that fire under your ass, essentially, than to have the other opposite of, like, non-caring. Obviously, you need to have a happy medium, but, like, you definitely want to be more on the side of, like, I'm pushing myself versus.
Well, look at it as a business, right? Like, you need to take your business seriously.
It is a business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your baby. You want it to grow. You got to get it to grow.
Yep.
What is some of the things you've learned along the way, man? Like, I mean, let's focus on the people that want to start the podcast, their own podcast. And again, this is something I think we could really have a good conversation about both ways, is because I've been there. I think this is episode 87, and I could tell you
we're about the same mark almost now.
Yeah, I think you've been more consistent with me.
For
sure. So, number one, people, be consistent. But like, there's so many things on there in factors that I'm just curious what are some of your takes on it, and I might add in at the end. But this is very good.
I would say my interview skills, my and I think that's why communication is so important to me, is because there is communicating with someone over an interview, that there's a lot of like, you almost have to like think of not only how they're gonna answer that, but also like how that's gonna lead into the next thing, how like the conversation is supposed to flow. Like podcasting, yes, it's just a conversation, but if you're really trying to, like for me, like I'm really trying to help people who want to be in this industry, I gotta make sure that the episode stays on topic of like whatever the topic that person wants to share with our audience. So just the interview skills, I think, have gotten tremendously better. I can now hold a conversation, and a comfortable conversation, a meaningful conversation for an hour plus, where at the beginning, early on in my show, I would always do a half-hour interview and half-hour mix from a producer. And if it was just a business person, obviously it would just be a half hour. But I went taking it from being able to hold an important conversation with someone for 30 minutes to a full-length episode of an hour plus. I think that was one of my big things. What else have I learned?
Well, I want to hit on that. Let's hit on that.
Yeah.
It is something that it's so true. And as you continue, it just progresses more and more. I mean, same thing, dude. I started out barely do 40 minutes, or if it is, it's really bad 40 minutes, you know what I mean? And like, you're just, it slowly just comes with more and more repetition. And it goes back to that whole thing of like, you just got to do it, because the more you do it, the better it gets. I mean, the same thing with vlogging, content, all that stuff. It's just about that repetition, the consistency, and the discipline to do it. And obviously the other factors affect that, which is why we get upset about it. You know, like, oh my God, someone canceled. That affects now me progressing to be a better interviewer and stuff of that nature. But yeah, so we've got right now 2 things: have episodes in the bank, and interview skills as they progress.
Another thing is, I didn't even know, it was more of a self-discovery thing, but how much I really, really, really like graphic design and like logo creation and like that kind of stuff. Like I've done all the work for Underground Society, everything that you pretty much, not 100% everything, but I'd say probably at least 95% of everything you see with Underground Society branding-wise, I've created. I've come up with our logos. And I've done all that work myself, and I really, really like doing graphic design. So that was something that like I now get to do a part of this project that I didn't even know that I thought I was going to have to outsource that originally. But I was like, you know what? I don't have the money to outsource it, so I'm going to figure it out myself. And I really love doing that now. So, and now I get to do it for other people who, I've had friends who start other businesses that I've created their logo for them, or, helping other people, other artists that I'm working with their merch, helping them put their merch together or whatever it may be. That's something that I really discovered about myself.
Little side hustle, guys.
Yeah.
You're right. A little side hustle on top of the side hustle type of thing. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
You talked. Oh my gosh, I just lost that question. Oh my goodness.
You're good. Take your time.
You said something that hit, and I was like, that's a good question. We'll have to. It's gone. So long.
All good. That's another thing too. Here's another thing: is forgetting what you're about to say mid-sentence.
It is such a weird thing that your brain just does sometimes.
Like, I just thought about this 2 seconds ago. Or like when you walk into a room, kind of unrelated to podcasting, but you walk in, you go from downstairs in the living room to like upstairs in your bedroom to grab something. And you walk into your bedroom and you're like, what the fuck was I about to grab?
Yeah, where did that thought go? It just disappeared. Like that was literally I was starting the sentence and then I was like, where is this going? I don't even know. Yeah. That's one of the most aggravating things. But it's just a natural, like, human thing that just comes out and happens. My goodness. Fuck. That's so bad. Okay, so we had those 3 things mainly. Yeah. Work.
There's a lot. I mean, we could go on and on for things that I've learned, and I think starting the podcast and really sticking and proving, even just one more thing in my toolbox of proving to myself that if I do something and I stick my mind to something, I can actually make it happen. And just the character development for myself. I'm really about self-growth and stuff, and I read self-help books, and I try and help other people do the same. But my own growth in the last couple of years has been insane. It blows my mind sometimes too, of just like, wow, looking where I was a couple of years ago before I started the podcast to who I am now after building this company and talking to so many people who are in our industry, and like just who I've become. I'm super proud of that. So
I mean, hey, that individual development I think is so key, and it's the premise and basis of starting my page and this podcast, of learning yourself, loving yourself, why, what works for you. Like there's so many things. We're such diverse and broad individuals, but at the same time, all those small things make us. Mm-hmm. And it's just so vital to be in touch with that and be in touch with yourself. It's just so important. And I think it's so much more important than people realize, because I think obviously there are some things in this life that happen that are horrible and unplanned and you can't do anything about. But there's a lot of things in life that happen to some people. You probably know people in your own life. I can think of people in mine that things happen over and over again, or they always put themselves in a predicament, mm-hmm. and they never sit and assess it. You're talking about assessing yourself in a good scenario. My podcast, I'm 86 episodes. I look back, I've progressed so much in a good way. That's even fantastic. But there's other people on the flip side of things that something happens and they don't assess it. My point is, assessing yourself and knowing yourself, good and bad, is so vital for your own growth development. And it's definitely something you should be absolutely ecstatic about and proud of, because it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do.
No, definitely. It's something that I enjoy too, along with the self-growth stuff, is for example, from October to basically the weekend of New Year's, before that, I was drinking like 400 or 500 milligrams of caffeine, and I noticed that I was kind of getting to the point of like, I probably shouldn't be drinking this much caffeine, so I took a 3-month break from caffeine. So just doing like small challenges, challenging yourself to stick to something, and practicing that discipline is. And I quit vaping a couple years ago. After my last breakup, I quit. I'll talk about it a little bit more of a sensitive subject, but I stopped watching porn. There's a lot of things that I've cut out of my life because it's not the easiest thing to do, but I know it's going to make me a better version of myself. So I really like challenging myself to go without or abstain from certain things. So I think those middle mini challenges help you build up that mindset for the bigger challenges that come. 100%. Funny you say the caffeine. I cut out soda like back in February. I'm almost at a year now. Hell yeah! Congrats.
Like just crazy. And I still do tea.
Yeah,
that's my big vice. I'll be honest with you. I don't get any
that's better than the sugary caffeine drinks though. Yeah. And soda. Yeah.
Soda I had to get rid of it. I've been trying to do about. I think you saw this giant fucking jug right here, dude. I'm
the same way. I drink a gallon of water out of my hydro flask every single day.
I can do at least 1.5 of these. I think is a good call, but I try to do a gallon, 1.5.
Yeah.
Just, dude, the amount of for me, water. This sounds really dumb, but not dumb. But I know this when. I promise it makes sense. but when I started drinking more water, it was profound the difference it made in my life. You don't think about it until you do it.
And once you see that difference, and maybe there's a time, because I haven't always been, you kind of go through waves of okay, I'm really good about drinking water for this amount of time, and then it's I left my water bottle somewhere, so then it's okay, now I have to think about drinking water, and sometimes you're not always perfect with that, and you kind of go through waves, but you can tell the difference between when your body is properly hydrated versus when it's not. Your performance is completely different.
The amount of energy
that too
throughout the day is astronomically different when I'm drinking. When I am full committed to drinking a gallon of water, it takes about, I'm not going to say it's immediate because it's not, but maybe by week 2, week 3, all of a sudden I'm walking around at 2 p.m. and I'm I feel like I can conquer the world. I don't feel tired. I don't want to take a nap. I feel it's just something. It's crazy. It's just a small thing. But again, it's those small things
make the biggest difference.
Make the big. Yep. Just that small. Again, back to that small repetition. Boom, 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 boom. Consistency keeps it going.
Yep.
You're a big podcast listener, aren't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. I thought I picked up on that.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, because I'm a big podcast listener too. It's ironic. because there are times where I don't know about you. Do you go phases? I go through phases.
Yeah.
I always listen to podcasts, but there are phases sometimes where I won't listen to music for like 3 months.
Yep.
Which is really weird, given that we're both in this EDM industry, and that's our main niche.
There's sometimes I can only listen to music for a certain amount of time too before it gets like, okay, I've been listening to music for like a couple hours. I'm like burnt out from listening to music.
Burnt out from listening? 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's super weird. So, as a podcast listener, I'm just curious, what are some of your favorite shows? Let's start there.
I like some of the big shows.
I'm right there with you.
Impulsive is one of my favorites. I think Nelk Boys Full Send is another one of my favorites. And what's cool about those shows is because they're so freaking good at what they do and they're so talented and they've been doing it for so long. Yeah. As creators, I learn a lot from watching those guys, and that I can apply to my own stuff. So I listen 100%. To Rogan depending on the episode. I listen to what else do I listen to? A lot of comedy podcasts. I don't know if you watch.
Two Bears?
Two Bears, yep. That's weekly basis for that
favorite.
one. Yeah.
That's my favorite, dude.
And then they have their individual shows that I listen to on a fairly regular basis.
But
yeah.
Them two together.
Yeah, Two Bears is amazing.
Fun.
Yeah. There's another one that actually one of my friends, a smaller show, but I think they're number 2 on Apple Podcasts, called Two Girls One Blunt. It's like a stoner podcast. It's a comedy show. They're from LA. Actually, they live in Florida actually, they smoke weed on their podcast and they just talk about like random shit, and that's fun to listen to. And then there's like some YouTubers. I don't know if I think I mentioned in my podcast, the episode with you and on my show, Max Tuning. He was someone who I listened to when I was competing in bodybuilding, and he also is mainly a vlogger, but he just started a podcast in the last year. His show's really good. He talks to a lot of other people in that niche that I follow as well. And I watch that one mainly just because I learn a lot from it, and he's a entrepreneur as well. He owns a candy company, and he owns a clothing company as well. So like, there's a lot of like, just I listen to shows. Sometimes they're for entertainment only, but then other times like the creators I watch and I try and like soak in as much information from them as possible so that I can use it and grow my own stuff. So. Yeah,
100%. It's a little bit of mix, same thing. A little yin and yang of both.
Yeah,
is fantastic.
Because sometimes I just want to throw on something stupid and I just want to have a laugh. So, another one. I don't know if you know who Trevor Wallace is, but his show Stiff Socks. That's a great show.
Yes, I'm familiar. Now, as an avid podcast listener, I'm curious: are there any specific episodes that stand out, either in a funny sense or a life? Like maybe change your perspective on something, or that you found useful that you maybe re-listen to occasionally, and would. I
don't know if I actually ever re-listen to episodes, to be honest. One thing that I've learned, and it's not even a specific episode, but one thing I've learned recently I don't know if you follow Impulsive, but recently there was an argument that happened between George and Logan. About Christianity, and there's a lot of talk about people kind of hating on him right now because he was kind of bashing the Christian religion, and George is the guy on the show that is the Christian that talks about it all the time. So I resonate with that a lot, and being a Christian myself, and I thought it was interesting how, and they just did an episode, in their first episode back, I think this year, Logan, and they did like a boys only episode. They talked about like he like apologized and he like explained his angle and stuff, and I think it's just handling when there's so many eyes on you, and I'm not at that level yet, but when there's so many eyes on you and you're so publicized, just how they handle certain things, but yet still remain true to who they are and still bring their true authentic self to what, as a podcast host, you want to be as authentic as possible, but sometimes that authenticity people aren't going to agree with, and how do you come back from that? How do you manage people's opinions of you when you really are just trying to be yourself? So I think that was a big thing that I learned recently from that show.
I've always been a firm believer you can be yourself and be a badass and be whatnot, but without being a dick. Like you can be competitive without being an asshole type of thing, So there's definitely, and a lot of it gets very conscrewed nowadays. You saw a lot of people who have that mentality of like, well, if I'm going to make money, I'm going to be a successful businessman, I got to be an asshole. Like, and I think it's far from the truth. You build quite a big network by just being you and being kind, and obviously stick up for yourself when needed, but you don't have to be rude to everybody. I think
and
kindness goes.
I think that's been talking about character development and stuff for me. That's been something that another thing that I've had to overcome in the last couple of years, and something that the podcast has helped me with a lot. Is I used to care so much about what other people thought about me because I got picked on a lot when I was when I was growing up. So up until the last couple of years when I took the opportunity and took the gamble on myself to really make an online personality, people are gonna talk about you. People are gonna have opinions of you, but you got to keep going no matter what and stay true to what you believe and what you want for yourself. So that's been another big challenge for me, is really starting to not care what other people's opinions are of you and doing it anyways.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, that's a whole mantra of this. It's the brand I want to create. It's everything. Is living yourself forever. Live yourself for every day. I almost said it wrong. So bad. That would have been pretty bad. Pretty bad. But yeah, I mean, live yourself for every day. It's something I believe in, and it's hard to get your own voice out of your head with other people are gonna think this, but as you, like you're saying, as for your development and stuff, as you start to do things that you like and do more, you start to really care less and less about what other people are gonna say, because you kind of know, like, well, they're not making me happy at the end of the day. I'm making myself happy.
Yeah, you're in charge of your own happiness.
Yeah, and it's definitely something as you get older you get to really grow into. Your environment changes. That's part of it too. Like, I think of our school system, you're kind of like with the same people most of the time from like kindergarten to.
And you don't get to choose those people either. As you become an adult, you get to choose your circle.
Right.
So choose wisely.
You can completely move away. Exactly. If you can completely move away, you can completely talk to entirely different new people. It's really up to you, and and what you make the most of it in that situation. But yeah, it's so vital, that character development and being able to branch out and all that stuff. Yes. I have a podcast episode I'm going to recommend you. I think you'll like it. I'll say it here. Why not? Naval Ravikant on Joe Rogan.
Okay.
If you look it up, I think it's like episode 13.
Text me that too. So I remember.
I will text you. I'll text you. I have the episode saved.
Sick.
It is literally one of those episodes. I swear to God, I've listened to it like every 3 months. I pop it on again.
Oh, that's cool.
It's weird. I just take something from it every time. Something. But I remember the first time just being like, this has shifted my mind.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you hear episodes like that. And that's what I think's fantastic about podcasts in the podcast world, is that you can listen to different people talk.
Do you know who Jay Shetty is?
I'm not familiar. No.
No, he's like a life coach. He used to be a monk. He actually wrote a book. I have it right here. Think Like a Monk, Jay Shetty. Okay. He went and studied at a monastery, became a monk himself, and then he came back and he basically what his brand is sharing the monk lifestyle with the everyday person. Wow. And like the way they think, the way they go about certain things. And I'm almost done with his book, but he has a podcast too. It's really good. So check that out.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic.
And it's all about like self-growth and like, like being the best version of yourself. So it's a cool show.
I'm just so keen on that, because I think it just affects everything. You want to start a business, boom. You want to go to be a doctor, boom. Like all of that combines to you get to that goal that you want. And it all starts with you, living true to yourself. It's like that saying of like, you want to fix the world, well, you got to fix you first, and then you go try to fix the world. Because if you're broken, how are you going to fix the world?
So you got to love yourself before you go love others too.
That's right. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Yeah. And that's hard to do. It's hard to. It's not a easy road.
One thing that's been beneficial for me learning how to love myself is spending alone time. I used to hate being alone. Now I love it.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
So vital. Like having I've done that where it's just like, I'm gonna stay in on Friday night and just hang, just chill.
Yep.
And it's like it's almost addicting. You don't want to do it too much.
Yeah.
It's too addicting. Well, we're about an hour or so in here, Justin. I got one more question, and we'll wrap it up here. And it's a very broad, open-ended question, but I ask everyone this at the end of the podcast. How are you living yourself every day?
Man.
There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah. I think waking up every day, being able to do the podcast, being able to, take one step further, even big, small, whatever it may be, towards my ideal life that I want to be living in the future. Not that I'm not already living the life that I want to now, but and I think it's always going to be a work in progress. But just being able to wake up and truly, I think about this pretty regularly, is how lucky I am to be in the position to live in the house that I live in, have all the camera stuff that I have, my computer, everything that I have. I realize that that's such a gift, and not everyone gets that. So the fact that I get to use those tools to do what I love to do and build what I, eventually, want to keep growing and stuff. Just continuing on doing what I love to do, and just how lucky I am to be able to wake up and continue doing that day after day after day. I'm so grateful for the life that I have. So
that is awesome. Jess, I love the mindset that you have. I think more and more people need that. I loved having you on as a guest. Hope you'll come on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Fun as fuck, as I might say.
Yeah.
But it's been great. I loved it. Thank you very much for your time and for coming on.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure, man. Where can people follow you and all that stuff, as well as obviously the podcast, and give them all that?
Yeah, so if you want to get to know more about me, my personal Instagram I'm very active on, Justin J. McGary, McGary. And then obviously if you want to get, find out more information about the podcast, we're on every social media platform, Underground Society Podcast. Instagram is undergroundsociety.edm. Twitter is UGSpod_EDM, and then TikTok I think is also UGSpod_EDM. So look up Underground Society on anything and you'll find us. So
I'll make sure to have it linked in the podcast description as well. But thank you so much, sir. This has been a fun hour. I loved it. Hope to have you on again soon.
Hell yeah. So, anytime, man.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.